everybody, it's Judy from Wilson's Orchard.
And Jackie from Wilson's Orchard.
Today we're going to show you how to make some cutout cookies with some royal icing frosting. We're going to try and make it kind of easy to understand and do yourself at home with your kids for the holidays. We'll be selling kits at the farm market for holiday cookies with the frosting and sprinkles in it. So today we're just going to walk you through how to do all of that. Jackie is going to start making the cutout cookies. The first thing you do is put the butter and sugar in the mixer. The key to any cookie working well and being nice and soft enough is to make sure you mix the butter and the sugar for a very long time. A lot longer than you think. Usually about, yay, the mixer works. Usually about 5 minutes or so. You want it to be nice and creamy and come together so that it looks like a, what does it look like? Creamy cookie batter. It's really important to scrape down your bowl all the way to the bottom so you get all of the chunks of butter that they mix together with the sugar. This is a part of the process that makes your sugar break down so you don't get those granules in your mouth when you're eating that delicious cookie.
And you can either use softened butter or hard, right out of the fridge. But if you are using out of the fridge butter, you need to let it mix for about 5 extra minutes. This that we have in here is in between, I would say.
We always scrape it a few times just to make sure we're getting all of that mixed together really well. It really is a key to a good cookie. I think this is where most people go wrong with their cookies, is they're not patient enough with the butter and the sugar mixing together well enough.
And this is about the consistency that you're going for. You can tell that the butter grows by about, I would say, double in size almost, but by the time it's done being creamed. And your next step after this, I always scrape down the bowl before I add the eggs and vanilla. Otherwise, only the stuff on the bottom of the bowl will get the vanilla and eggs blended throughout.
And I think we're ready to add the egg and vanilla.
So it's just 1 egg and a teaspoon of vanilla. You'll want to add it while it's on a pretty low speed, otherwise it could throw the egg in your face, and nobody wants that to happen.
Nobody wants that.
So I usually start it on a slower temperature and slowly turn it up. And this part of the process, it's also necessary to make sure that you scrape down the bowl a bunch, because even though you did it before, it kind of pushes it up on the sides. And if you don't have egg throughout your whole entire cookie, they won't bake correctly.
Always scrape, scrape, scrape.
And now we're gonna add flour, which is
2 1/4 cup of flour.
And in here there is a ½ teaspoon of baking powder. If you only have unsalted butter at your house, you can go ahead and add 1/4 teaspoon of salt here as well, but if you have salted butter, you can leave it out. And I would not turn your mixer up any higher than 2 or 3 during this process, otherwise it could mix the cookie a little bit too much. And also throw the flour everywhere in your kitchen. And this cookie is also imperative to not overmix, so as soon as it comes together, you'll want to turn off your mixer. If there's little bits of flour, you can always incorporate that with your hand. And this is also a good point for you to scrape the bowl again, because all of that egg and butter and sugar mixture will be stuck around the side and all the drier bits are on the top of it. Put the bowl back up before you start, otherwise it won't mix.
That's when the flour goes everywhere.
All right.
This is perfect. So we're going to get all the little bits off the beater, scrape everything into a nice little ball, and we have roll-out cookie dough. Okay, so now the rollout with our fancy rolling pin, otherwise known as PVC pipe. Want to put a little flour on the counter that you're going to use for it, but don't do too much. You don't want the cookie to be coated in flour. You just want enough so it won't stick to whatever you're rolling it out on. So now, depending on what kind of frosted cookie you like, whether you like it to be a little thicker or a little thinner, is how you'll roll this dough out. We like it so it has a little crunch to it, but it's still soft inside. So probably about maybe a little less than a 1/4 inch thick, maybe right around a 1/4 inch thick. If you get it too thin, they'll really be just very, very crispy, which I really like, but most people like a little softness to their cookie. We have, of course, an apple cookie cutter because, you know, it's Wilson's Orchard.
I like to have a little pile of flour on the table that I'm using, just to dip the cookie cutter in, because once you cut out the cookie, it'll get a little bit of the oil from the butter on here, and it'll make the cookie stick to your cutter. You can see on that first one that I did that it stuck a little bit, but now it's getting a little bit better every time because it's getting a little more coated in flour. And then the easiest way for me to do this is just pull away the extra dough until I have a cookie exposed, and then I'll pull it and just put it on the tray.
And if you tear one like I almost did, you can kind of put it back when you get it on there. If you need to add a tiny dab of water, you can do that. Not too much though.
And because these cookies have baking powder in them, you'll want to leave a little bit of space in between. They don't grow quite as much as a normal cookie, but they will a little bit. I like to leave anywhere between a 1/2 inch to an inch of space in between each one.
And you just keep re-rolling this dough until it's gone. It'll make more cookies than you think.
And this is why you want to minimize the amount of flour that you put on your table, because this time when you re-roll the dough up, it'll soak up all that flour that's left on the bottom and make your cookie a little bit too dry. So once you have a full tray of cookies, you'll put them in the oven for anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes. They should be slightly golden brown around the edges and pretty consistent with the same color in the middle. If you overbake them, I would recommend pulling them off of the tray right away and putting them on a cooling rack so that they don't keep cooking from the heat from your tray.
That is how you make a rollout cookie. Now we're going to show you how to frost with royal icing.
So now while you're waiting for your cookies to bake, you can start by washing your mixer. It's very important that you get every bit out of your mixer right now, because your frosting will not come together if it has any bit of fat left in the mixer at all. So first we're going to start with 3 egg whites and then a teaspoon of cream of tartar. And we'll put that right into the mixer and let it go a little bit just to break up that cream of tartar so that there's not a big chunk in here. You'll want to get all the bits of cream of tartar in there.
So when you're cleaning your mixer before you make royal icing, make sure you get all the butter even out of the top of here, because really one little bit of butter will ruin that royal icing. You can't have any fat in it at all.
And again, you're going to start pretty low with this, but slowly turn it up. You can go all the way up to the highest speed with this. I recommend using a whisk attachment because it helps it come together the best. I usually mix it for about a minute before I add the powdered sugar in. And there's 4 cups of powdered sugar in this recipe. And a good time to tell when to add the powdered sugar is you can start to see a couple of bubbles in your egg whites. I like to put the bowl down before I add the sugar, just so that I can make sure I get every bit in here. And then once again, you'll want to start this slowly, but once it incorporates some of the sugar, you're good to turn it up. And once you have the sugar blended, you'll want to set your timer for 5 minutes, and then as soon as that 5 minutes is up, you're done with frosting.
The 5 minutes is important after the powdered sugar is incorporated. Set a timer for 5 minutes. It will help your frosting be nice and glossy. So we're going to mix this now for 5 minutes. Our powdered sugar is incorporated.
And when it is done, You can tell because you should have some stiff peaks on top of your whisk here. From this point, you'll just put some in a bowl with your favorite color of food coloring and stir it up until it's nice and incorporated. I like to use...
You can do 3 or 4 different colors out of this one batch of frosting. It doesn't seem like enough, but it really grows as you use it. You're gonna continue to add a little water until you get the color you want and the consistency you need to frost. So we've mixed our colors. And we have these nice pastry bags to use. If you don't have pastry bags at home, a Ziploc bag will work fine. Just cut the corner off of it. And depending on how much frosting you want on the cookie, matters how much you cut the bag.
If you do use pastry bags, I would recommend cutting this excess off because while you are frosting the cookies, that top of the bag could drape down and scrape off the beautiful, beautiful cookie. So when I am decorating cookies, I like to start with the outline first because it helps gauge how much frosting you need and it helps keep all the frosting on top of your cookie instead of draping off around the edges. If you are using a pastry bag or a Ziploc bag, I would recommend twisting the top so that you don't have a bunch of it falling everywhere. And I'm just gonna put some frosting in the middle here and have Judy spread it around until it reaches the outline around the edge. If you are doing this at home, I would recommend adding a little bit more water so it's not quite this thick. However, this is the perfect thickness for the outline around the outside.
Red frosting takes a lot of color, so start small, but you're gonna use a lot more. The rest of the colors usually are quicker. Red and black are the most difficult colors to achieve. Your cookies should be nice and firm. You should be able to pick it up. Should be pretty on both sides. Pretty consistent color. Okay, that gives you an idea how we do the base of color, and now Jackie's gonna go in and add the details that make these cookies look like an apple, even though they already do. As I said earlier, we're gonna do some kits that you can come and pick up at the farm store and take home and decorate with your kids. It'll have baked cookies in it in various shapes and then several different colors of royal icing and some appropriate sprinkles for the cookies that you can frost.
Right.
There's some frosted apple cutout sugar cookies with royal icing. You can do any shape, any colors you like. It's pretty simple, and I hope that helped.